The Fox Valley Orchestra of Aurora, Illinois, was formed in 2010 to provide professional quality musical performances and educational opportunities for the people of the Fox River Valley. Since its founding, the majority of the concerts have been held at Aurora University, with several appearances in the Tri-Cities. The orchestra is directed by Dr. Colin Holman, an accomplished conductor of opera, musical theater, orchestras, and bands. The Fox Valley Orchestra is an impressive addition to the cultural life of Aurora. It is the latest in a proud tradition of local musical entertainment. The existence of formal musical groups in Aurora can be traced back to the mid-1800s, when the city's first band was formed in 1856. It consisted of 8 musicians. 6 played brass instruments, and 2 played the drums. A slightly larger band, called the Aurora Cornet Band, was launched in the 1870s. These marching bands were fixtures on the American scene, playing at events and celebrations of all types. By the 1890s, the number of musicians increased, as evidenced by this photo of the Aurora Military Band. This band was directed by local jeweler William Eggerman. The Aurora Enterprise Band was formed in 1900. New bands seemed to spring up in quick succession during this time. Another band, the Dwight D. Goddard Military Band, was a popular marching band in the era of 1910 to 1920. As the executive director of the Aurora Historical Society, John Jaros, remarked, "On a warm summer evening, it was not unusual for the band to commandeer an open streetcar in downtown Aurora and play as the car headed west on Downer Place. This brought much enjoyment to the residents seated on their front porches." Classical music also was an integral part of Aurora's past. In 1867, child prodigy Maude Powell was born in Peru, Illinois. When her father, William Bramwell Powell, became superintendent of the East Aurora Public Schools, Maude moved to Aurora, where she studied the violin and piano. She eventually became one of the world's greatest masters of the violin, performing in both America and Europe. In 1881, at the age of 13, she played a farewell concert at the Coulter Opera House in Aurora with the Stein Orchestra. She then continued her studies of the violin in Leipzig, Paris, and Berlin. 4 years later, she returned to the United States, where she became the premier female violin virtuoso in the United States. At the time of her death in 1920, the New York Symphony paid the following tribute to her. Maude Powell was not only America's great master of the violin, but a woman of lofty purpose and noble achievement, whose life and art brought to countless thousands inspiration for the good and the beautiful. Orchestras began to flourish in the early part of the 20th century. In 1918, the Black Hawk Concert Orchestra was formed. It started out as a young boys' band and soon grew in fame. It eventually was comprised of men of all ages. And of course, the blues has been an important part of Aurora's culture. In the 1930s, many blues musicians recorded at the Leland Hotel on the Bluebird label of RCA Victor Records. These recording sessions took place on the top floor of the Leland, known as the Sky Club. Yank Rochelle, Big Joe Williams, Big Bill Brunzi, Washboard Sam, and Henry Townsend were a few of the luminaries who recorded their music at the Leland Hotel. Youth groups also became a part of Aurora's musical heritage. The 1920s Aurora Saxophone Band and the 1930s Largent's Accordion Band gave young people the opportunity to share their musical talents with the community. Even very young students were introduced to formal instruction in local schools. In 1928, student musicians at Brady School on Aurora's east side were proud to pose for the camera. An all-female group, called the St. Cecilia Musical Club, began offering multi-piano recitals. In this 1929 photo, 16 women played classical music on 8 grand pianos. Alice Doty Wernicke, one of Aurora's best-known musicians and teachers from the 1910s to the 1930s, gave lessons in her beautiful home located on Main Street, now known as Galena Boulevard, near Root Street in Aurora. She was an avid supporter of both the St. Cecilia Musical Club and the Black Hawk Concert Orchestra. The caption on this 1931 photo credits Wernicke for being a major part of the orchestra's success. Then, in 1936, the Black Hawk Orchestra invited female musicians to become members. It changed its name to the Civic Orchestra of Aurora in 1938 and performed in the auditorium at West Aurora High School, located on Black Hawk Street at that time. Dr. Frederick Tenegas was the conductor. However, during World War II, priorities changed as men went off to war, and the orchestra was forced to disband. In 1957, Aurora resident Shirley Stoley enlisted local citizens to form a new orchestra, the Fox River Valley Symphony Orchestra. Joseph Holty, also of Aurora, was elected president of the board. The board chose Dudley Powers as its first conductor. Mr. Powers was a cellist with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. He served as a musical director from 1957 to 1965, at which time he was succeeded by Francis Akos. Akos was a violinist from Budapest who was imprisoned by the Germans during World War II. He survived to become the concertmaster of the Berlin State Opera Orchestra. Later, he achieved the position of assistant concertmaster of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Frederick Ockwell became the third director. Ockwell studied piano and the bass at the famed New England Conservatory in Boston. A Fulbright scholarship took him to Cologne, Germany, for additional studies. He then was the assistant conductor at the State Opera House in Hamburg, Germany, before serving as a faculty member at Northwestern University. Harold Bauer and later Fusao Kojima followed as conductors. Bauer spent 15 years conducting orchestras in Illinois and Pennsylvania before creating the highly successful Symphony Orchestra and Opera Company at the College of DuPage. He stayed at the college for nearly 3 decades. A native of Japan, Kojima began his piano studies at the age of 4 and his conducting studies at 14. He attended the New England Conservatory and served as a conductor throughout Europe, Asia, and the United States. The orchestra celebrated its 40th anniversary in 1998 under his leadership. Shortly thereafter, Colin Holman took over as director. In the early 2000s, many orchestras around the country were forced to reduce their number of concerts or close their doors due to financial difficulties. The Fox Valley Orchestra met the same fate in 2001. After an absence of 9 years, a new professional orchestra, the Fox Valley Orchestra, was formed and is bringing quality musical performances to local citizens under Colin Holman's leadership. Since its founding, the orchestra has performed the great works of Beethoven, Brahms, Mozart, Tchaikovsky, and other famous masters of composition. The number of patrons has continued to increase each year, as has the enthusiasm for its high level of professionalism. In addition to highlighting the various musical groups and individuals who have made such a significant impact upon the cultural landscape of our community, It is also important to feature the venues that help to showcase local talent throughout the years. Before there was an official opera house in Aurora, performances were held on the top floors of major businesses. These top-floor rooms were called halls. The Dunning Block, on the corner of River Street and Galena Boulevard, was one such venue. The Brady Building on Broadway and Galena Boulevard was another location with a large hall for entertainment. Both the Dunning and Brady buildings were constructed in 1858 and served as the prime locations for musical entertainment until the 1870s. In 1874, the Coulter Opera House opened on the corner of Broadway and Fox Street, now called Downer Place. This building was the home for plays, musical performances, and lectures. In 1889, it converted to offices. Many of the promotional materials of events held at the Coulter Opera House exist to this day. It appears that music of all types was a part of Aurora's early life. Even John Philip Sousa appeared at the Opera House in 1902. The Grand Opera House, also known as the Aurora Opera House, opened its doors in 1891. Located on the northwest corner of Broadway and Benton Street, it became a motion picture house in 1915 and was called the Strand Theater. It burned down in 1929. And of course, since 1931, the Art Deco Paramount Theater has been home to an astounding number of musical performances and plays. Through the years, schools and churches have also opened their doors to musical artists. East and West High Schools, First Methodist Church, and New England Congregational Church are a few of the venues hosting local musicians. And Aurora University continues to welcome musical events that attract hundreds of patrons each year. It is impossible to list all of the musicians, conductors, and civic leaders who have enhanced the cultural life of the greater Aurora area. Instead, we will acknowledge the current Board of Directors of the Fox Valley Orchestra, who are carrying on the traditions of past generations by sharing their talents with the community. This video has been produced by the Community Foundation of the Fox River Valley in gratitude for those visionaries from our present and our past, who have devoted their lives to the advancement and preservation of our rich musical heritage.